back on here. It said that his all of a sudden his connection was unstable, and then we lost him. So while we're waiting for him to jump back on, and it's telling everybody because I'm going to use this one now. So Jeff Lesley is joining us on my series, Powerful Conversations. I'm super lucky to have been in a lot of different environments with a lot of different successful people who are my friends or people that have mentored me. And Jeff is no different. So Jeff is the #1 Century 21 agent in North Carolina, but we've known each other for over a decade, and they are telling you we're going live. So I'm just waiting. Hi, you're back. Okay. I just gave a full intro again, Jeff, as you get on here.
Oh, right. There we go.
It said you
I've had the
were
iPhone. We were
unstable,
going
and
to
then we
find something
lost
that
you.
works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
you question before I left was tell me about what I did prior
Real
to
estate.
real estate.
Yeah.
Yes. So I worked at the local university. So I managed the event facilities there for 8 years, making a whopping 45,000 a year, I think the year that I left.
Yeah.
And so it was definitely the kind of job with stability. I will say the biggest thing that I learned from it was two things. A willingness to just jump outside of my comfort zone because as you know, real estate, there is no guaranteed anything.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I said, okay, well, let's just get rid of the comfort level and just go outside the box. And obviously, I don't know, I don't want to say it was the step one into skydiving, but it definitely was, felt like skydiving on
Yeah.
itself. But when I was
Then
there,
go ahead.
I learned managing people really well too. So I had anywhere from 40 to 50 employees working for me any given time.
Yeah.
So it really kind of helped me grasp putting the right people in the right seat. And that's carried me forward drastically today to where we are.
I think that's probably your superpower.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, that's when I think about other real estate agents and where they cap or where they fall short, or people in that industry, is they just don't like, you had like a full blown, well, you had an assistant, I think, before you were making money yourself, but then you had like a full blown team, and continue to this day, because you were just like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And I also just know what I don't want to put up with.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I got licensed May of 2011, hired my first assistant May of 2012. So it
Yeah.
was one of those things of where it was definitely out on a limb. And I hired 20 hours a week for me and 20 hours with another employee, another agent at the time.
Yeah.
Moved her down to the area. She started full time. And then probably about 3 months into it, the other guy came to me and said, hey, I can't keep her anymore. My business.
Uh-oh, Jeff. I can't hear you anymore. I can't hear you. You got to put your phone on Do Not Disturb. There you go. You're back. Okay.
I realized that. This is going to be fun. Hold on. Let me do that now because it's
Do
going to
it
happen.
now. Yeah. Hi, Laura. Hi, everyone who's just joining us. Jeff is going to put his phone on Do Not Disturb. And then he should be able to pop back in here. This is a great picture. I'm going to screenshot it just because Jeff's smiling.
Is it
Okay, you're
phenomenal?
back.
Whatever.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So you hired, so the agent said, hey, I can't keep her full time. And so you brought her on full time?
Correct. Brought her on full time that year. And then I went to our broker at the time and said, what do I do? Like, I've got to now support another human full time. And then at that point, it was let's devise a plan. And as you know, in real estate, it's a numbers game. So we made the numbers adjust to where they needed to be. And that year ended up hitting Centurion first full year in the business. So
It was worth it.
it worked out well at the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you strike me as somebody, no, you don't strike me. You are somebody who, it's so funny. You are so even keeled. And like, that is something that you really have to, I think what I would say, what I call that is just emotional intelligence. And even when you're nervous, you know, I've seen you just very few times a little bit like you don't really know,
Right.
you know, I don't know if you have those moments anymore, but where do you think you developed that? Or have you always been that way?
I don't know. I think I've always been that way. Yeah, because I know my ex used to get aggravated about it because she's like, this isn't bothering you. I was like, we can't control it. If there's
Yeah.
anything I can do about it, I'll fix it. But I'm always a fan of if I can control it, we'll take care of it. But if we can't control it, there's no point in worrying about it.
I think that that is so brilliant because so many people, especially people that I work with, it's like they like to be in the problem. Like they're it's like some type of distraction, and it's self-sabotage that keeps them from actually like dealing with the pain of whatever the goal is going to be, which is probably the rejection, or is it going to work out, or the uncertainty. And I think when you have that emotional intelligence and that ability to just go, well, let's just find out, but we're not gonna be over here in distraction and problem and not solution and any of that. And I don't think you've really mentored anyone in real estate, have you?
True mentoring, no,
Yeah.
more a lot of conversations, we'll call it.
Cool. Do you see that with other people? Do you think that that's probably a downfall, or I mean, you've brushed shoulders with a lot of successful people. Do you see that maybe where their downfall is they avoid doing the hard thing or the thing that they can control, and it might be perceived as hard, so they'll go and be distracted by something that they can't control but they can complain about.
And I think that's just a human quality in general.
Yeah.
Like when I was making a move a couple years ago, and there was a conversation I was having with Mike Ferry, one of our previous coaches that you were used to be in as well.
Mhm.
But he said at the time, he said, keep in mind how like your average real estate agent is. Like they all want to be in an office. So we were kind of talking about a company that was a little more virtual based. And he said every agent wants to kind of be in the office just to talk. And so that's kind of why the shares had increased on those companies again, because they're really not trying to be productive. They're just trying to have that something they can go in and complain
Community.
about.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
So funny. My mom, she has a friend staying here, and she was a real estate agent in Washington and California. And she's like, I did a lot of, when I think back about my real estate days, but she's like, I did a lot of volunteer work. I did a lot of networking. She's like, you'd go in the office and you just chit chat. And I was like, I never did any of that. I was like, you couldn't catch me talking to anyone. And like, unless it
Yep.
was like upper management just to go like ruse them, just to bother them a little bit. Like, and also like, because we like each other. But I
Mm-hmm.
think there's truth to that, right? Like people, we are connected. Human beings want to feel connected, but we have to understand if your job is to drive revenue, then you need to, do what's important first, right? Those high value, high impact activities before you go and, maybe connect with people at happy hour, not during
Exactly.
working hours.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
get people all the time asking about the broker lunches and stuff. And I say, we're not going to do a broker luncheon because it's going to just bring the agents not doing any business. Their whole
Yeah.
goal is to find a free lunch that week. And I would much rather be networking with the higher producing agents who have got our buyers, not the people who are just coming for a free lunch.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So I've watched you evolve a lot, and we've had a lot of, behind the scenes. I'm just seeing your face. I'm like, I've just seen more Jeff Lesley in my life. But anyways, I've watched you really personally. You've gone through divorce. You've gone through launching your own Century 21 brokerage and
Mm-hmm.
and leaving the Berkshire Hathaway brand as they had morphed or whatever. You're now in a relationship, a very serious one. I was like almost sure you were going to get engaged in Greece. I was like stalking. I was like, is this happening? But with a woman that I've never met that seems wonderful with kids. And how do you feel like you've been able to navigate your personal life, right, through all of those dynamics as you've grown in success?
I think it is a challenge at first, and I'll be the first to admit that. I think you've got to kind of look at where you want to go and who you've got to be there.
Yeah.
And so it becomes we can always read the books, we can kind of grow our skill set in the business, but we've also got to grow our skill set in every dynamic. And so it's just a matter of after a divorce and kind of dating scenario, at that point, I was like, okay, well, what am I looking for? What am I not looking for?
Yeah.
And so you got to kind of figure out what you want. And really, once you become comfortable with you, then that's when the right people just magically come around.
Yeah.
And I think there was a whole lot of that time frame of where I was a shit show for a while and just
Yeah.
trying to figure out
We were together.
exactly,
Yeah.
trying to figure out exactly what I wanted at the time.
Yeah.
And so you just got to really, I think, provide yourself enough opportunities to make sure that you figure out what you want so that when it does show up, you know that's what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think you have to go through a lot of what you don't want.
Correct.
I joke with people, like, I work with egomaniacs and I love it. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
we are not people that want to be average, and we are typically doing things behind the scenes that we shouldn't be. And like, there's
Right.
like all these funny dynamics, right?
Yep.
And like the average person's like, this is making me uncomfortable. I'm like, well, I understand that.
Uh-huh.
But it's that journey of what you just talked about, like really learning who you are
Right.
and being comfortable. Because I think if you're in any business that you are rewarded based on like production, there is, you have to be, you are a special individual. So even if you're an entrepreneur, business owner, someone in real estate, but if you are the driving revenue person in your business, you're gonna, like, you have to be almost this person that you have to create an identity that can go and drive that revenue and become that person. And
Right.
then when you do that, what that feeds is things that aren't always healthy. And I think you have to cycle through all of that to go, okay, who do I want to be today? And that's kind of what I heard you say.
Yeah, and the addiction and dopamine that comes with being able to get a deal. Because, I mean, even in your world as well, in real estate, we got to the point where we can print money. Like,
Yeah.
we knew if we got on the phones a certain amount of time that
Yeah.
things were going to work and money was going to
Yeah.
show up. And it
Yeah.
really has that high to it of where you're really enjoying that part of it all. But it can also define you. Like, I figured that out. And I know you lost your mother, and we haven't officially talked since then in
Yeah.
person. But losing my mom last year as well, similar scenario. There was a lot of time that I spent with her, and so I wasn't making the money that I always had gotten accustomed to. And so when you kind of define yourself on printing money, it really is a major identity shift when it's not there. And
Yeah.
I literally went heavy into debt and just got the debt paid off about a month ago.
I wish you'd have
And
called
so
me.
exactly, yes.
I'm like, why didn't we talk? Jeff used to
Exactly.
be like, there were 3 people in my life I'd call, like my mom, my dad, and Jeff. So it's like,
Exactly. And that's exactly
uh,
when it is defining you, it's
yeah,
a problem when it's not there.
yeah,
And so you've got to really kind of find that balance for every angle. And that was I would say that was the past 12-month lesson learned, was that making sure that there are other things you're getting a benefit from. Because if
yeah.
it's just money, sometimes it's not always there.
A lot of time, right? Because
Yep.
I don't want to say a lot of time, but something will happen, right? Where you will get so knocked. I mean, I joke, like, the last 18 months of my life have been like in the meat grinder. And I think people laugh and they're like, really, the 18 months? And I'm like, that's adorable. But no, I mean, I've experienced a lot of success and like was this prodigy, right? And I did everything right. And I just had a massive drinking problem. I had a lot of unresolved trauma. So I was dating very, toxic people. And I remember when I found breath work and started healing and started to kind of just understand and identify, like, just understand that maybe I was something a little bit more than looking pretty and generating money,
Hmm. Yep.
and who was that? And then getting married, and that was a great thing, and going to Montana, but just realizing what you said, like, oh, we don't have the same values. Like,
Right.
we don't have the same goals. Like, we don't have the same hobbies. Like, I'm always going to be driven,
Hmm.
like,
Yep.
that's not going away.
Yep.
But realizing, I think, then losing my mom, going through that divorce and moving back to my dad's and losing my mom, and I let go of all of my business. I just said,
Hmm.
I need a breath. Like, that has been enough, where I just, and in similar situation where it was like, okay, well, I've saved some money and I don't want to work with these people anymore. And I'm going to rebrand and I'm going to go back to working with these people. But in all of that, you have, like, and I'm getting to a question. It's like coming up against those stories of, you're a failure, or this isn't that important, or, because those are the things that made us successful, are like,
Hmm.
shut up, put your head down and get back to work. And then when you grow a little bit and you're like, no, spending time with my mom is so important and I'm willing to let everything go. But then you're in this rebuild process. It takes a different, like, what do you think you've learned in that? Because I can only imagine, I'm calling you when we get off here, but like, but it takes a different level of, okay, I know what to do. I know how to do it, but like, now I have to come out of something. Not like,
Right.
I'm not even out of maintaining, like, I'm coming out of something. So tell me, like, what what helped you, was it just hard work, or and battling those stories? Tell me everything.
So everything. So I'd say the biggest positive from last year because I tell people like I had an off year last year, and my coach beginning this year, it was cute. She's like, "Oh, we're going to go up 20%." I was like, "No, we're going to double last year because last year was not a good year." And so that's where we put the plan in place to make that happen. But for the time of last year, I spent more with her than I have in the 20 years combined with my mom because she found out basically beginning of January, her cancer came back, and then end of August passed away. So that window of time for roughly 8 months was plenty of great time spent together.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you look at the 20 years combined prior to, definitely far more than. So I'm glad I had the opportunity and was able to do it. Talking about having the right people around you too. I've got the right people around me in the office that we kept the ball floating just fine. And I had, as the universe operates, I put some systems in place 2 years ago to like reach out to past clients and things like that with a new employee. And that really kind of carried me through last year. So I had all of the groundwork that I'd laid 2 years earlier and didn't know why. I mean, I knew why I was laying it. I thought I was laying it to make a ton of money, but it turns out I was laying it to really kind of breeze me through last year. But then when I coming back into the end of the year, I said, okay, well, I've got to get back in and grind. And then for me at first, it was, oh, this is going to be easy. Because as you know, I got in 2011, it was expireds, and I'm hearing, oh, expireds are back. I'm like, this is going to be great. Well, from that 90-day curve, which I thought we were on for quite a while, turned into about a 5-month curve before the money kicked in.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a struggle financially. And I bought 5 rental properties last year as well. In hindsight, should have never done that. Had I known how everything else was going to play out, I should have 1031'd a few over, and we can talk better financial decisions later.
Yeah.
But I mean, great position to be in long term. I just didn't. You don't anticipate, just like I'm sure you were, like you think everything's going to get better. And then when it didn't, I was like, ooh, that kind of took a turn.
Yeah.
And so you've really just got to kind of step back and say, okay, everything I've done is for a reason. It's all going to play out just fine. And then you really just get back in. And it was just the kind of grind mode for me. And just realizing that I could get it back in and identify. I would say the first thing that I have not done, and this is what I'm working on now, is I cut the gym time out, which is terrible. And so now I'm getting that back into play because that was the one thing that for probably the past year to I'd say 18 months roughly, I have not gotten in there nearly as much as I need to. And so now I'm being me, kind of applying everything to it. I'm now getting in the mode of working out 2 times a day because I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to dive in head first, let the business kind of float for a bit and just work out like hell for a bit.
Yeah, I love that. Just a total side story that I'm going to tell. So, that I am dating someone, but we had taken a minute because I had been through a lot, and we had a conversation, and I said, hey, I think this is, not going to work out. And that day I decided to do 75 hard. I talked to my girlfriend, and she's like, I've gone through a lot of breakups. That's never been my solution. And I was just like, but it was so good. I made it to like day 48, and then I came into this launch and this new program, and things just went, and the guy came back in the picture, and I will complete that program at one point or another, but being able to work out twice a day and just have that, because there's some that when you source power from yourself versus just constantly grinding, it allows you to, I think, show up and hold the line when you're like, okay, I am a bad mother effer, versus like, okay, we've got to grind it out again today. I can do this. Right.
Well, and the big thing I think that I can't remember who I heard this from. I think it was Ed Milet or someone a few years ago, but they said, if you want to start going to the gym, then get a trainer. Because if you take it to the infinite degree, that's how you're going to actually set the routines you need. And I'm reading the book now, 10X is easier than 2X. I don't know if you've read that one or not, but very similar concept. It talks about how if you're,
okay, I'll look it up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about
it. But he basically kind of talks about, we always look at, okay, we want to make our business get 10% better, 20% better, whatever it is. And that's just kind of the slow growth things we do. Yeah. But we keep 80% of our life normal. Well, if we really truly want to get to a 10X level, we've got to realize that 80% of our life we're wasting time. That we're really just kind of doing the same routines. We got to kind of reinvent where we're going to go. And similar concept, like I've got to really double down and kind of changing some drastic moves. I'm actually going to be calling my past clients, which you'd be proud of that. But so I've got some systems in place now, but just from a real estate perspective, I need to get in and do things that I should have been doing all these years. And I knew I needed to be doing. So I'm really just going to kind of double.
Like that's, correct. So this is the thing, like even when I had, Brianna has told us too, Benjamin Hardy. Okay, so even, and Dan Sullivan, even when I had like I was telling this woman this morning, her name's Pam, I was like, I never really kept up with my past clients, and I didn't go to baby showers, and I didn't go to birthday parties, and I didn't do any of that because I knew I was going to sell your house really well. And then if you needed me again, you'd call me, and I didn't care. And
Right.
now you're like, oh wait, we've got to go and nurture these relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Are you nervous?
Nervous is the wrong word. I wouldn't say it would be nervous on that end, but it's just a matter of I know to get to where I need to be. I've kind of flatlined. I plateaued, I guess is
Yeah.
the right word in the career. And so one thing that Mike Ferry said, I guess like last year maybe, he was talking about how the market's going up 40%. And so if you kind of look at your overall numbers, if you're not up by 40% plus 20%, you're down. And as
Yeah.
the line that we all go by, if you're not growing, you're dying. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, ooh, I
You're
am dying for
sitting there
sure.
like, I'm like a bull, like I've got to get out of here. Yeah, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
So
Yeah.
quickly at that point, I said, okay, it's time to put the pieces back into place to get to normal. And Ashley, I saw she joined a minute
Yeah.
ago, but she did make a jackass, but I needed to hear a comment probably like 2 weeks ago, and I told her this yesterday.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh yeah, I'm back on the production level I was about a year or two ago. And she's like, yeah, but didn't you say that means you're not doing well? I was like, oh, thanks. And it was just a very kind of side conversation
Yeah.
that cut deep, and it's exactly what I need to hear.
Yeah.
So that's why now I'm like, all right, we got to double, we got to get to where we need to
Yeah.
be. So I've got to truly reinvent everything to get there.
Yeah. I love that, and Laura in here is like, who wants to go to a baby shower? Amen. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, it's like, I agree. But I think that that's back to having the right people around you. Here to keep you in check. Okay, here we go. But I think that that's something that, people hire me for, and also something that I really seek out is people that will be honest. I
Right.
think we get to a level, especially my clients get to a level where they don't really know who to be honest with because like there will be judgment,
Right.
And so having coaches, having people that will, or even people on your, staff that are just like, just that one comment where you're like, noted, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kill everything in sight just because you just said that.
You have no idea what fire you just lit,
Yeah,
but
I'm
now I'm going to burn the whole fucking place down.
yeah, totally. What else did I want to say about that? Let's talk about a little bit about nurturing relationships, because that was something that's been a skill that I had to learn, and definitely started to learn that probably about 5 years ago, I would say, and I'm relatively good at it now. And I mean, imagine that. But I'm not carrying around all these like stories anymore. But do you, do you, aside from courting the best real estate agents in Wilmington, what is your game plan to nurture relationships, or where do you think you could improve upon that besides just calling, or is it just calling?
Brenna, who's on here as well, there again, kind of coming back to the reinvent game. I had two employees leave about 3 years ago now, so maybe four. Don't kill me,
Jeff
Brenna.
always has
But
Charlie's
then,
Angels working for him, by the way, too. Go look it up. But go ahead.
but no, when I taught 1 year of COVID. She taught 12th grade English for 9 years, and then interviewed and was like, "Hey, curious about the position." Me being me, I laid out, here's what the last one was, and then I'm reading because I read people really well. That's another skill set for sure. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting there and I'm like, this just is not the fit I don't think that we're looking for here. So I then at that point, 2 days later, was sitting with a friend and I was like, you know what? I'm getting out of town this weekend. Booked a flight next day, went to Florida, and literally just by myself, tucked away in a hotel, walking out on the beach, just going long walks during the day. And really got to thinking, what do I want the business to truly look like now? Because it was a time where I could completely redefine it. Put her into more of a business development level, which was kind of nurturing the past clients, which I had not been doing. So like we've got now happy hour events every 2 months of where we're able to get in front of them. And from my perspective, it's not a whole lot of time investment, because that's where I always kind of struggled of, I don't want to spend all this extra time doing this. Well, she can do the invite, set up everything, and I literally just show up, and then everybody is excited. And so it's good to see everybody again. Like we had like 4 people that came and they're like, I've really been waiting to talk to you because I've got this
Yeah.
deal. My so-and-so wants to do this. And so they're there to help you. And a comment Mike Ferry made probably 2 or 3 years ago, but he said, honestly, your database is your sales force. He's like, they should be your biggest fans, and then they should be out talking about you to everybody if you're doing a great job. And it's so true. If they're truly delivering that message, then everybody's going to want to come back your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that at least if we provide the best service, kind of like what you said earlier, I've always said my staff's my biggest lead gen source because we do a great job in the transaction, and then they tell everybody they know about us. And so really being able to kind of provide that experience, if you go, they'll compare you Motel 6 and Hilton, like you'll get those all day long. But if you're the Ritz-Carlton out there, then everybody's going to talk about it and everybody's going to come back.
Yeah.
So just really being able to catapult on that to the next level, and you'll see numbers will increase drastically, and going into 2025, 2026 is going to be a really damn good couple of years.
Amazing. I'm excited to watch. I know we're going to wrap up here, but I was having that same conversation. Again, this is so, the universe, God is weird. This morning, and I just said, because she said with the HAR, NAR, whatever, the ruling with the commissions and all of that. And I just said, I'm not in real estate and you couldn't pay me to go back. But even though a lot of people are like, why not? And I'm like, I don't want to do it. But every now and again I get an itch, but I'm like, no. But I said, the reality is I think the agents that have a social media presence, but also have that experience of the Ritz-Carlton are gonna be the 20% standing. I think 80% are gonna just die. Right. Because we are so used to being programmed through social media, but also through word of mouth. And now we're only going to want, like in your industry, I think people are only going to want to pay for it, the Ritz-Carlton, right? Like if you're a Toyota, they're going to be like, I don't need to do this. Don't you think?
Uber came along, but it did not impact the private driver force. It impacted the taxis. But people who already had a private driver service did not change their way of thinking at all. Yeah. And so it's going to be the same type scenario. When you need that high level of customer service to get you to the next point, then you're going to get it all day long. And if you've experienced it, you realize the goal is not to save money, it's to make money and have somebody in your corner. And in real estate, I think that's going to be what'll shake out. But you're 100% correct. It's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of people that don't survive the curve, but it's going to be everybody else that does are really going to just rise to the top and make the gap even wider.
Yeah, be the sharks that they need to be. Okay, one last question. So we talked about nurturing relationships. Yeah. He's like, I know exactly where she's going with this. So you are in a full-time relationship, and she's got 2 little kids. And how is dad, stepdad role, and being a parental figure, whatever your title is in that situation, and being a partner to somebody who's also very driven, how has that worked with your real estate, and how's that just worked with you in general? Like bringing someone kind of into the fold that isn't someone you pay, right? Like that's like somebody that you're like, oh, I can trust you, and we're aligned, and I'm willing to be present for your kids. And I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, and then we'll sign off.
So like a friend of ours said before, because we went out on a date at that point, and she said, oh, you two are either going to do really well or you're going to kill each other. I don't know which one it's going to be. And so it really is a kind of that fine line of when you're both driven, you're both kind of going that direction, you can truly bounce ideas off of each other. And that is phenomenal and can't be beat, because I will say that I've experienced the other side way too much. And so it's a matter of when you're seeing people that are along for the ride, I guess is the best phrase. It's just a whole different,
there's not the same level of respect as what I would probably say. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I could not get the right wording there.
No worries.
And then from a kid perspective, absolutely, it's definitely a complete major shift.
Yeah.
Like, me, like previously, I would look forward to 4 or 5 o'clock. I was either on the boat or at the bar, whatever the lifestyle would be at the end of the day. But now it's truly being home at 5 and then spending time with them. And like I had an agent yesterday that he's working with my sellers in a different area. And he's like, yeah, just make sure. I told him, I was like, you'll have it by whatever day it was, I think today. And then yesterday around 4:30, something like that, he messaged me and I was like, yeah, just wrapped up my appointment. You'll have it by 8 a.m. And I know in his head, he's like, what the fuck does that mean? Well, I knew that when I got home, my goal was not to get work done at that time frame, but to get up at 5 or 6 in the morning, push through all of that stuff that needs to be done so that he'll have the answer by 8. But really being more present. And I think that's the key to all of it is
Amen.
we do a terrible job when it comes to work of trying to bring work home too much. So
Yeah.
if we can truly focus and say, okay, here's the time frame that I'm going to push work into. We've heard the phrase many times, like if we get the work done really, really well prior to vacation, because we know we've got to get it done and we have a deadline.
Yeah.
And if you really kind of compartmentalize your day a lot better and say, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here, so you can be present, it's a game changer. And I'm a fan.
You're a fan. I
I'm a
love it.
fan.
Yeah, Josh is somebody that similar. We're very strong. I'm just like, I've just never really been with somebody that we are two very strong individuals that want to be understood and heard.
Yep. Exactly.
But
Yep.
at the same time, we have the same values, and he respects my work ethic, but he's also said, hey, I want you to be present. And like, what did that mean for me? And it's been an amazing thing for me to go, okay, yeah, I'm going to rebuild and blah, 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 blah. I can say all the stories I want, or I can just be very, very intentional about my time, about what drives my business, and forget the rest. And like, it'll all take care of itself. Right.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay, well, everyone's a fan of Taylor too, it looks like, in your office. We're going to wrap it up. Jeff, where can people, if people want to sell their house, where can they locate you, and where are you located?
Wilmington, North Carolina. So really, if you hear North Carolina, give me a call. My business partner is kind of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area as well. So we can make those connections for you anytime.
Okay. You are just a wonderful human. I'm staying in touch with you more. We just need to.
Deal.
We need to do like a couple something. I think you'd really like Josh, and I'm sure I'd like Taylor. So we'll be in touch, and thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Bye.